All right. We did not start this morning, but we get ready to start now. Can we talk for a minute? Tevin Campbell, 1990. I don't even know. I can't remember. So, we want to talk about communication today. Our lesson for today is if communication breaks down. So, we figured out a couple of things as far as how this works. So, we're going to get the book again and we're going to be able to show it to you. But now we've figured out that we can actually show you the book in the right way because we don't learn how to flip the screen. All right, at least she did, because trust me, I'm the worst technical person in the world. So she's going to get it and show you what the book is now by Stormie Omartian. I'm sorry. Yay! You can see it and read it. So. Thank you. So the thing is, we can get started on the lesson. I'm sorry that we didn't start this morning at 8 like we normally do. Still have our coffee though, but I had to go to work. And so now, we can kind of focus on talking about communication and how that impacts. I'm going to cut this down because I need to make sure that we stick to time and then keep our things going. So I'm setting a timer. And I think we are ready to start it. So today we want to talk about communication. So we discussed last week about forgiveness, and we went through 4 weeks of touching on that at different varying levels. So now we can talk about communication and how we should communicate and keep that line of communication open with feelings, with different things that go on in a relationship. So we are not the authority on anything, but what guides our work is God's word. So I'm going to get this prayer, and we've already showed you the book, and I got to get used to looking at the wrong side of the screen. So if I keep looking the wrong way, please forgive me. So this is the prayer, and I want to read it. It says, Lord, I pray. Oh, excuse me. I am not going to read that. We're supposed to be making a declaration to each other. Okay. So I declare and make a declaration to you that I will be fully engaged during Thanksgiving. Not all that stuff of talking about work and all those other things. Just family, just us, just the children. I make that declaration to you. Okay. I made the declaration. And you already know she's going to hold me to it. So the declaration has been made. Work 0, family 100. There you go.
Okay. So my declaration for this week is to, can it be? I don't know.
She don't even want to make a declaration to me. You don't give them.
I do. What could be my declaration?
We'll just wait. Oh my goodness.
My declaration for this week is to be understanding and supportive of you.
You already understand and supportive.
Because you've got some major stuff coming up this week.
Oh, yeah.
So my declaration is to not be selfish.
Okay.
There you go.
Yay. Oh, goodness.
That's important.
Right. That is important. And so I'm going to start with that prayer, and that's going to kind of guide our work today. And then we will connect and make sure that those scriptures that we need to cover, we will cover. So it says, Lord, I pray you would protect my husband or wife and me from any kind of breakdown of communication. Enable us to always share our thoughts and feelings and refuse to be people who don't talk. Teach us how to trust each other enough to share our deepest hopes, dreams, fears, and struggles with one another. Help us to spend time communicating with you every day so that our communication with each other, will always be good. Teach us how to openly express love for one another and keep us from any laziness or selfishness that will cause us to neglect to do that. Help us to refuse to speak words that tear down, but only words that build up. I'm going to repeat that. Help us to refuse to speak words that tear down, but only words that build up. So, we want to be effective communicators in the marriage. Husband, wife, wife, husband, husband to children, children back to wife, job, whatever it is. We want to be able to effectively communicate with one another. And I am not the best authority on that because I'm the one that has the worst communication in the marriage. So I'm doing better. I will try to do better. So we want to talk about a few things. One, we're going to talk about protection. We're going to talk about, the breakdown, what the trust factor is, where do we spend time, communication in itself, how do we express things, and then laziness and selfishness. So I need you to find Ephesians 4 and 29.
Right.
And then we can kind of focus on that piece. And I got to get some more of this pumpkin spice coffee. And what my wife will do, my wonderful wife will be typing these questions directly into the feed. So we have a keyboard now. We're getting better, technologically savvy. All right. So we're going to look at Ephesians 4 and verse number 29. You want to?
And it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen."
So in a nutshell, that means do not talk crazy to your spouse. Do not say negative things to each other that would take away from the greatness and the uniqueness of the person that you say you love. So it's important that you say things that build up. You speak those things that be not as though they were. But there's some positive characteristics in the person that you marry, or you wouldn't have married them. So we want to focus on ensuring that, our communication and the things that we say are for the nurturing and the health and benefit of the relationship. So we're going to transition from Ephesians 4 and 29. Again, it says, don't allow those negative things to be spewed out of your mouth toward one another. But those things that you need to be saying need to be those things that build up and not tear down.
You know how you read scriptures and then you go back and you read it again and you see something that you really didn't pay attention to before?
So what did you find?
It says, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen.
Ooh. So does that mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, does that mean that you could actually look at a need in your spouse and you can write that down and you can go pray about that, and then you can think about all the positive things that you could say to enhance that need? I could be wrong, but that's something that I would do because I never thought about that part according to their needs.
According to their needs.
That's very interesting. That's an aha moment for us. For me, definitely. So,
But you know something else too? And I can give praise for that because I've actually done that before. And I've actually seen those prayers come to fruition.
So what you trying to say about me?
No. No, what I'm saying is when you were dealing with certain things and just in our conversation and talking, I took that to heart.
Okay.
And I took those before God. Yeah. And I saw that stuff come to light.
About me. Just playing. Okay. All right. So, but I think that's important. If you're looking at a situation where, somebody may be saying negative things and you have to find out, okay, this is not what I signed up for, but there has to be something positive in your mate and your spouse that you can say to lift them up. And when you see areas of improvement, you don't have to keep making that be the focus of bringing it to their attention, but you can take those, but nothing to them. speak it in prayer in privacy. And you have too many places that you can pray. Car, restroom, closet, front yard, backyard, on your walk, in your exercise. Your earphones on. Don't nobody know what you're thinking in your mind. You could be praying. So there's no reason why you can't find ways to pray. So we're going to transition from Ephesians 4:29 to Psalms 19 and verse number 14.
Okay.
Excuse me, I didn't want to sneeze because this would be a horrible experience for you all if you see me do that. All right, so
It's 19 and 14?
Psalm 19 and verse number 14.
Okay.
All right. Ooh, that's serious there.
May these words of my mouth and this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
That means do not think and say crazy things. It said, may the words of my mouth, so that needs to be pleasing to God. Mm-hmm. That means if you know what's going to come out of your mouth is not pleasing to God, you shouldn't say it to anyone, whether it's your husband, wife, or somebody that you know or a family member.
Right.
That's not something that you should be saying to each other. So now, after she finished typing in the scripture, she's going to put it in. So now we're going to go into protection. So we want to talk about, how do you protect each other? What do you do in order to protect the one that you love? We're going to focus on that for a second. When we talk about protection, you're not always going to be with your wife, and you're not always going to be with your children. But the enemy is busy, and when you talk about protection, we're talking about many things. Protection of life, we're talking about protection of her heart, protection of the children, protection of your finances, but let's just stick to the communication piece. How do you protect each other? You pray God's protection over your spouse. And let's start with one of the most important ones. One is the heart. Two is the mind. Pray over your spouse that you protect their heart, meaning that you don't want to be the one that break it. And then also you want to pray over your spouse's mind, that the attack of the enemy won't attack their mind. They're at work. They may be approached by men or women or both, but the issue is that you want to speak God's protection over them when you're not with them. You want to speak God's protection over your wife when you're not with her, and vice versa. She should be doing that over you when she's not with you. Right. She don't know what you're going to face, but it's a nasty world out there. And knowing that you're going to leave out of the home with God's protection over your spouse, that makes it just that much more better. So pray over your spouse. Again, effective practice is to pray before your feet hit the ground. Do that in the morning before you get going. That doesn't mean that your day is not going to be challenging. Doesn't mean that you're not going to go through anything. But what it does show is, Lord, I trust you with my family before I even start moving around. No matter what all the things I got to do, you have my best interest at hand. So I'm speaking the blessings of the Lord over my wife, over my husband, over their health, over their mindset, over their attitude. I'm doing all those things before I even leave and touch the floor and start getting started with my day. And protection of life in the car, that my wife will get to work safely, that my husband will get to work safely. Right. That while we're in these different venues that, they're safe in there. This is me being unselfish. If I'm going to pray that my wife is protected at Kelsey-Seybold while she's at work, then why wouldn't I pray that everybody in the building be protected? Ooh, why wouldn't I do that? It's not just for her to be protected. So she's supposed to be okay and get out of there, but what about everybody else? Everybody else in the building. Huh? So I think that's going to stretch you as a person, that you would be praying also for your spouse while they're at work or while they're on their way to work. So when I pray for our children, when they get on the bus, while they're on the bus, when they're at the school, that they're safe. Right. And not just those students not just my children, it's others' children in the building. So they all need to be
Power
safe.
off.
So my thing is, that is a very, very sincere way to start the day, praying for protection over each other. You want to add anything to that before we move on to our next piece?
Well, yeah, because we don't know what our spouse is facing when they're away from us. And there's been a lot of times that when, I'll put it like this, when you have that connection, not only in the physical, but in the spirit with your spouse, a lot of times the Holy Spirit would just drop that on you. You know, you need to pray right now, or, just bring them on your mind real heavy. And that has happened with us before. And I didn't even know he was going through some stuff at work. And I'll just send him a quick text, with a prayer. And he'll come home like, you know what, that was right on time, because I was dealing with this, and this at that time. And I looked at my phone, and it just calmed me down and got me through the situation. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you just never know.
And it's a really good opportunity to just, like I say, stretch yourself. You have to exercise. Remember, we talked about practicing. Everything that we talk about when we do these words of wisdom with marriage matters, because your marriage does matter, then you need to practice these things. You're not going to get better at it unless you practice. So let's talk about what fosters or nourishes a breakdown. What causes a breakdown in communication? We can really spend some time on that, because if we want to talk about being an effective communicator in a marriage, then you have to think about what are the barriers to communication. So, one thing is just not having not having an open door, like policy of being able to just express yourself and say something to one another. She fussed at me, and I'm gonna tell you about communication and expressing herself. But what I would say to that is that no matter how we approach it, we create a space where we just listen to each other. And so for communication, for me, and this is something that everybody has to practice, no matter whether you agree with the thought or not, it doesn't matter, but you need to allow the person to be able to say what they want to say. And just because it may rub you the wrong way, then thicken up your skin, because that's your wife and that's your covering, that's your husband and that's your protector. You need to allow them to say what they want to say. And then after that, you allow them to get it out, say what they need to say, and then we can start focusing on addressing it. But not having an open door policy to communicate, then you have some serious barriers.
Right. And another breakdown is already having your answers preconceived. You are all ready to go before they even get it out their mouth. So that's shutting the door on communication already. Oh Lord, here they go again. Well, I'm already ready. And coming with a defensive attitude instead of taking your spouse's feelings into consideration. And my thing now is flip the script. What if you were feeling that way and you were on the receiving end of that instead of the giving end? You have to take each other's feelings into consideration. It's not all about you, but it's also about your deliverance too, how you deliver what you need to say.
So I do that.
I think we've both done that. Just being real and honest. Well, we've all done that. But it's a growing process, because once you recognize it, if you recognize it and you still choose to not conform to a better way to communicate, then you just done before you get started. And that's just being real.
So I think that's a barrier. It's several barriers to breaking,
But we want to hear from y'all too. What do y'all think are some barriers or breakdowns in communication? Because give us some feedback, because let's to help some other people that may not know, or they're going through it and don't recognize what it is.
That would be good to know, because wherever we finish with this lesson, we can always pick back up, because we need to know what you all think about what could be a barrier to communication in your relationship with your husband and your wife. It's important to know.
Rodney, that's a good one.
Oh man, that's
Difference
good.
in upbringing.
Difference in upbringing. Wow.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one.
But the thing about that is that what you know, Rodney bringing that up is a good point, because as a husband and wife, and different people when they get married, they have a different approach. Some go through counseling before they get married. Some don't. They just jump in. You know. So with the upbringing, you really need to pay attention, or at least find out and ask some questions about how was your spouse raised, right, and what that looked like. Because I guarantee you, communication, when you go to visit, you can see some of the things, but just talking to your spouse about it, it's good to know, what the background is with effective communication with them, or the lack thereof, so that you can be able to put some steps in place on how you're going to do that. Rodney, that was really good. Perfect. Anybody ever had any comments about what else could be a barrier to communication in marriage? Because we would like to hear you. We'd like to be able to talk about that. I'm going to get some wait time. I'm going to do like we do in the classroom. I'm going to get some wait time. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Somebody has something that they can add to this. Rodney said difference in upbringing. And it's always going to be a difference in upbringing, because nobody's raised the same way. It doesn't exist. But you need to use that as a platform to be able to recognize those differences and bridge the gap between that.
Jaleesa said fear or rejection. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Rejection.
Fear of rejection.
And that kind of goes into what Millicent said. You already have your answer ready. Mm-hmm. And so if I know you're going to respond like that, I'm not going to say it. I'll keep it to myself. And therefore, that is a serious barrier, because it's probably something that needs to be brought to the forefront, because the person that needs to hear it is not having the opportunity to hear it, because you don't want to say it because you have fear that you're not going to accept it. They're going to comment on it, or it may... She'll tell you that she'll say, I'll just look over it. Yes, going to smile. Yes. So that could be a serious barrier to communication. Yeah. I strongly agree with that. Wow. Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you. So that goes into this next point, because I don't know if we're going to finish this today, and it really doesn't matter, because these are some good points. So if you have fear that you may be rejected, this is the next point. What does trust mean to you? Because if I don't trust you with my heart, I ain't going to trust you with my fears.
Right.
Let me say it again, people. If I don't trust you with my heart, I'm not going to trust you with my fears.
Right.
That's another one, too. So one comment was said, standards set up by society and not by God. So, that's a whole different other lesson, because what people live, that's what they do. Or what they've experienced, that's what they do. So, Rodney, that's a tough one, because then you got to try to deprogram somebody to another way of thinking. But one thing I like about that statement is that if you ask the right questions, then you can bring about the thoughts about how you can go into looking at answers. Not the answer, answers, because sometimes there's more than one answer.
Right.
And so you have a worldly way of doing something, and then you have God's wisdom and knowledge that He has in His Word. We choose the Word of God. People do other things. They do what they want. But this marriage, we're going to choose the Word of God. Right. And so... But again, if I don't trust you with my heart, I'm not going to trust you with my fears. All right. What do your time focusing on? And if you're having a communication with your spouse over something you agree with or disagree with, one of the things that's important is that if you're always focusing on what's going to be said, it's going to be difficult to look at what could be a solution to make it better. Oh,
Okay.
So men having the final say so. Okay. So I'm gonna say this to people that are listening because y'all, I'm not a dictator. This is a partnership. This is a lifelong journey. So I'm not the emperor, dictator, CEO. This is not no relationship like that. Now, if I make a decision and it tanks, and my wife told me through prayer and supplication, and I didn't listen, then I bring shame to the family because I didn't listen to my covering, my helpmate. I didn't listen. That's different.
All right.
But we have built layers of communication. And when we see things as a couple, when we're out, we with him.
Now I have something for this too, where it says, "What do you spend most of your time focusing on?" If we spend most of our time focusing on past hurts or rejection, or either like the standards of society, what I have learned to do personally is go and find scriptures that pertain to exactly what I'm struggling with, exactly what I'm having a problem with, and continue to pray those prayers until the issue is resolved. And another thing I did too, me and a couple of ladies at work, we have a prayer box. And so we pray the prayer, but we also write it out.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning date, when we
Okay.
write the prayer completely out on paper and put it in that box, expecting God to answer those prayers. When those prayers get answered, I go back to that prayer and write the completion date, and I put it on the bottom. So
Wow.
the answered prayers are building up the foundation of the new prayers to come.
Ooh, that's powerful. And I remember when she started that with her coworkers, they were serious about that.
Yeah.
How you doing, Tori? And so I felt that was real positive because now you're building behaviors that you're going to continue to practice that's going to make you stronger.
Right.
Because those behaviors build habits, and those habits build a lifestyle. And the lifestyle is what people see. They see that in you. That's a lifestyle change. And that's something that you want to work on. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about too, when we talk about communication, there was a question that we wrote down. It said, what is the first step in communication? And I'm going to say it. You need to listen. You need to listen. Don't talk. You need to listen to what they are saying because they're speaking from experience. They're speaking from their heart. They're speaking from a place of pain. They're speaking from a place of blessing. They're speaking from a place of overcoming. And if you don't listen, not going to be anything effective with the communication because they're trying to convey a message to you and you don't want to listen because you are either off somewhere on your own thing or you already thinking about all the things that you need to say in order to fix something.
Rodney on it. One of the biggest problems with communication is people feel as they must listen with the intent to reply instead of listening with the intent to understand.
That is perfect. It's exactly right.
Yep.
So I try to really, take the time to, Nez, how you doing, Nez? So I try to take the time to really pay attention to what my wife is saying. It's important to listen if you want to be effective with the communication. Just listen.
Right.
And then that'll bring about a better understanding. At least you'll know how your spouse feels about whatever situation that is. But if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't say anything, if you don't pay attention to it and you try to overlook it, you miss an opportunity to be blessed because it may be something that could definitely do for you. Thank you, Rodney, and we appreciate you, brother. You brought some real knowledge and understanding to this today. Thank you, Rodney. So, communication is key to any relationship. Expectations are communicated effectively, the relationship will be strong. When the expectations from the relationship are not communicated effectively, then you're going to have a weak foundation, and therefore it won't grow. If the communication between you and God is not strong, effective, then you're going to struggle with other relationships, because even in that relationship, you should be listening to his voice.
Your communication and relationship can only be as strong with your spouse as it is with God.
Okay? And I think with that, we can start closing this thing out, because we'll be talking about communication again on next week. We covered almost all of our points today except for two. One, expressing how you feel and your concerns to each other. Now, one of the things I can say about my wife, she does that in several ways. If she feel like I don't listen to her in vocal communication, she will write it and leave it, and she know I'm gonna read it. So, when you read something that's written on paper, it's different from listening when somebody's talking to you, because now it's imprinted in your mind. You can't get it out, so you need to respond to it. So one of the things that we try to focus on is different forms of communication. So if for some reason it's not working and we're talking to each other and it's not working out, she definitely will write it out and leave it in my car, or she'll leave it in the restroom, because once you get in there, you ain't leaving out. And so, but the thing is, she's making the effort to convey her feelings or her concerns to me. And the last one is really laziness and selfishness. How do these contribute to communication breakdown? Can't be lazy and you can't be selfish. You need to be open-minded, and you need to be willing to listen to another person's point of view other than yours.
I'm really tired. I just got home from work, and I really don't feel like hearing all of this. I don't feel like talking about it.
Okay. Well, there's two ways to deal with something like that. If a person doesn't feel like talking about it, I won't say that I would attribute that to laziness. I would attribute that to being it's not the right time. And so, one thing my wife and I, both of us do, if we know it's a heated topic and it's going to be a struggle for us to deal with it, we will pray that God create the atmosphere for us to be able to engage in that conversation with one another.
Exactly.
And we also pray that in that atmosphere that we will really take the time to listen attentively and really focus on what each one of us is saying, so we don't mess that up. So that's one thing I can assure and tell you, that that's something that we do. If it's going to be one of those things where I don't want to hear nothing you got to say, I ain't trying to hear that, you mean to move on, okay, I got that. But we can at least come together and agree that, hey, I know you're upset with me, or I know this is something very pressing, and I'm going to just pray for the atmosphere. I don't have to tell her that. Right. I know it's a serious issue, so I'll just go pray about it. I'll just go pray about it and say, Lord, I ask you to create an atmosphere so that when my wife and myself engage in this conversation, that you are in the forefront, that you allow me to listen with my head and my heart.
Right.
Don't allow me to start formulating different kinds of responses to try to do the comeback on her. I just really want to listen to what she's saying out of her heart, and then we can go from there. So, yeah, I'm going to say it again. If there's an issue where it's kind of, spirited, and you don't want to talk at that time, then don't talk at that time. Ask God to create that atmosphere of peace, create an atmosphere of love, create an atmosphere where you're ready to pay attention, and then you can talk about whatever serious issue that is, or whatever's on your heart,
right,
that you want to focus in and talk to your wife about. So,
but above all, even in all of that, do not discredit the other person's feelings, because everybody has a right to they feel how they feel. Mm-hmm. So you can't just discredit that. Again, flip the script and put yourself in their position. Think about the words that are coming out of their mouth and say, okay, if that was me delivering this, how would I want my spouse to receive that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a outstanding piece to think about. Communication with your wife. Communication with your husband. What does that look like? Is it wholesome? Is it good? Is it dysfunctional? Is it crazy? What you do in the house, if you talk crazy to each other in the house, you're going to bring that to Walmart. You're going to bring that to Costco. I ain't never even been to Costco. But wherever it is, you need to really think about that. And so on a whole lot of levels, there are some things that you may communicate in the home, and there's some things that you may communicate when you're not in the home. But one thing my wife and I will tell you, I don't care how mad she is with me. I don't care how mad I am with her. We bring that stuff home. We don't do that foolishness outside. We don't do that foolishness in the parking lot, other stuff. She'll be mad with me in the car. She might not say a word to me. We get home. We take a step back. If she don't want to be in the same space with me, I understand. She might not want to be in the same space with me. I might want to be in the same space with her. But we love each other past all that foolishness.
Right.
And we know that we can come back and we can sit down in a private space and talk to each other. And we don't do that crazy stuff in front of the kids theatrics.
Because you always on stage. They don't forget. They see stuff when you don't think they looking.
And they want to, and and I don't have a problem with them knowing that we're upset with one another. But I do want to thank God that no matter what we go through, they see how we come out of it. And when we come out of it, that's not an issue anymore. Right. It's only when you come out of it and you don't come out of it with God's success that it's an issue, because it's going to keep coming back until you do it the right way. When it's been covered up under the blood of Jesus, it no longer is a threat to your feelings, to your heart, to your way of thinking. So I think we're going to close it down because we went well over our time.
That's
but
all
I think
right,
that
it was good.
I think that it was a really good, piece to focus on as far as effective communication with your spouse.
Right.
Again, our two scriptures was Ephesians 4:29, Psalms 19:4. Ephesians 4:29, you should not be saying things that tear down. You should be saying things that build up. But again, like Millicent said, you should be saying those things that build up according to their needs. So if you know what your spouse needs, if you know that there's an area that they can grow in, you don't have to say anything to them. Just go to God in prayer and He will do the work. Also, just like she said with the box of prayers, all those prayers and those dates, and when God, answer those prayers, and you see that relationship with you is growing because saying, God, man, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. Effective communication between you and God, because He's showing you that I am ever present in everything that you face. And because of that, it's a way for us to say thank you for the things that sometimes we overlook. So, I don't know. I had a great time with you.
I did too.
Okay,
That was really good.
And we had an opportunity to also just engage with a few questions, but those questions were pressing.
Yes.
And so that was
all right, Ned family. Way to go.
Family, yes, yeah, Neds. So we're gonna move on because I'm getting hungry, and we'll be back at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Yes.
Coffee. We'll be talking about another lesson on communication.
Part 2.
And so we need a little bit more interaction from you all, questions or comments, so that we can be able to help other marriages matter, because your marriage.
Bye.